Hello, Something Guys and Gals. This is Something Guy 912. We have made it far enough into Half-Life 2 in terms of covering maps that we've now managed to cross into what is Act 2 of the campaign, as the first map we'll cover after the Ravenholm chapter is D2_Coast_01, the first characters of that map, an indication of such. Not only will I make a notation of the in-game map that was present prior to us going into this chapter, but Commander Riley SV will also make a return as I gathered some of his pre-war coast maps in preparation to cover these maps proper. Without further ado, let's. Alright, and we are in the map proper. Now, we need to have two clarifications before I analyze this. So first off, with the prior map, I had completely neglected to mention that all those parked cars in that warehouse basically have no way to get out. Basically, they would have to go through the other warehouse doors because they're bombarded upon by the train yard. And secondly, I had gone through this map a little bit with the car. As you can see, the buggy's not present, because if I don't go into the car and go through that whole procession where the crane latches on and then it drops off and then have to use a gravity gun to flip it back up, the announcer lady is going to be extremely annoying. It's going to be a similar situation to when Barney was like, hey Gordon, you know, and all that, from like, I don't even remember what train station map that was. I think it was train station 05. But regardless, I just did that so that we wouldn't have some background noise. So, starting off, we have a few inconsistent fence placements here along this side of the coast. Like we have here where it just seemingly stops over here, and then here where it's supposed to indicate the out of bounds, which is funny because this side doesn't have any fencing, and if I try to jump, as you can see, it's a invisible wall. So they couldn't even bother to put another side of fence adjacent here to make it seem as though it's like somewhat coherent, because you would expect that you'd be able to jump across over here. And since we're on this side, we have this little ramp on the off bounds, and then this like ledge for dock 87, I guess. I don't know why this would be designed to shoot out like this. I'm guessing just to hide the fact that this portion here is basically going nowhere of this side of the docks. And then, of course, it goes without saying, but with how beached up this portion of the shore is, this is the third major implication of the Combine's effect on Earth, with how much the water has like dragged across down here. Although there is going to be problems with that in accordance with not only where they think the water level should be in this game, but also the in-game map, as I had already presented in the last video. So, for example, we have these little gray erosion lines, which were in the canal maps as well. And I took this as a sort of, I guess you would say, a idea of where the water level could get up to, which somewhat contorts with the nature of this ladder ledge thing being up here, but not exactly with the sheer height of these docks, although considering the size of those boats as well, maybe they would be this high up. But then, if you go out of bounds here, you can see these like foundry silos and whatnot. So, if the water... Oh, wow. I'm not even in the water and the leeches are chomping. Like, even if you bring up the water level up here, they would basically be partially flooding these foundries. And since I mentioned Commander Riley SV, he has an interpretation of the map where the water level is a little bit above where this erosion line is, and I think he had to do some trickery and raise up the level of these foundries out of bounds to make it somewhat coherent so that they weren't completely flooded. But basically, the amount of gravel between the water level is like just a few inches away. And then, well, there'll be more to discuss about the incoherent nature of the water level in a moment. So along this dock, we have these little ledges here. Now, obviously, I don't expect the dock to have railings, but there are these little ledges here which are usually supposed to be used to, like, essentially tug rope around a boat, but also just to make it so somebody, you know, knows to not get too close to the edge to fall off. But this side of the, what is supposedly a dock, does not have that same effect. So I'm not sure why this doesn't have it, whereas that does. Especially considering that over here you see this, it kind of looks like a giant hook texture, and that's supposed to be, I believe, a hook for what would likely be an anchor, or even just more ropes to keep a boat in place. Although, again, the consistency of its placement is a little bit jarring, because it's here above the water, but then you have it here where it would have been below the water, around this crane structure. And then when we get in the car, you can kind of just wander around and explore out here. Now, in the in-game map, there are, like, not signs, but there's, like, indications of road. And that supposedly there is this loop that goes winding up and then around over here into this destroyed portion of the highway. But the problem with that is, this is supposed to be an area that supposedly had water in it, because if there wasn't water, how did these boats get here? And if there's no water, what is the point of these docks in this crane exactly? Because I had taken it that those maps were pre-war maps, before the Combine came by. So why would there be a road that just goes into this loop into what was water? You know, it doesn't make any sense. And especially given that the map, the grayed out portions are supposed to be where the water is, or where it should be, and then the more tan and white areas are supposed to be the land. And I feel like this is going to cause more inconsistencies the farther we get into it. Although I will say that this portion at least somewhat adheres, in terms of the road design, adheres to the in-game map. But yeah, there's just no way to have both of them coincide. And even Commander Riley SV kind of gave up on that and just had this all flooded, even though it would make sense that it would be flooded. And then we will move on. We'll go over here to where we're supposed to drive up to. And apparently this little makeshift road, even if supposedly this wasn't a makeshift road, has this random set of dock planks just jutting out to the side of it. Like, if I'm to believe that somebody is, like, driving on this, like, through normal means, like, man, that's going to cause some problems if somebody's trying to, like, pitch a boat nearby or whatever. And we'll go over here, and of course, parts of the road have been essentially just been left to the wayside. It's just been under disrepair and whatnot, and again, that's an implication of the Combine's effect on Earth. They couldn't really give a shit about this because this is not really of their concern. And especially noted is the fact that you have this portion of the road that was supposed to wind around, but has been collapsed. And presumably it's because of a landslide, as you can kind of see with some of the gravel or, I don't know, mud or rock or whatever. But it's not exactly well conveyed, because you have portions of railing that are still around as well. So it's a little bit odd if that was supposed to be, like, at least in terms of 2004 technology, their best interpretation of what a landslide would look like. And then we'll move up and we'll come across our first of many of these houses along the way in Highway 17. Although this is not really a house, it's more like a shed, especially given it's just one room and the floor. I mean, I was going to say that there isn't floor, but there is floor. It's just the floor kind of looks very similar to the natural ground around this yard here. And then that's where the car is. And then the last thing to discuss is these little barriers, which I find a little bit cute that they bothered to put these barriers up, but yet didn't feel the need to put them on this part or this part. They just had some barrels here. I mean, they do have these barriers here, but they don't have them here either. So very interesting that like, I guess the Combine has some level of concern about people falling off, but not total concern over where they're falling off. And with that, that is it for D2_Coast_01. And that was that for our first foray into Act 2 of Half-Life 2. I want to make this a series that consistently uploads on Mondays, but not every Monday, so do tune in for the following weeks for more to come.